Ezras Hashem Yisbarach Yom Shlishi Parshas Bamidbar Shnas Tovshin Ayin Vov Yeshiva Tiferes Avigdor. This week we began Parshas Bamidbar. Our Chazal tell us that Parshas Bamidbar is a Parsha which is read before Shavuos. You have to understand what the Shaykhis is. Now Parshas Bamidbar begins with the counting of Klal Yisroel. The way the Torah writes the mitzvah of the count was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, Su'u es Rosh Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael, count the heads of the whole Adas B'nei Yisrael, B'mispar Shemos, by the names, Pashat. Kol Zachar L'Gul Goloisa. So Rashi says, what was the idea of Hashem counting? Mitoich Chiboson, Rashi says, because Hashem was Mechabev Klal Yisrael, he loved Klal Yisrael, Moina Oisam Kol Shah. So he counts them at all times. It's like a person who has things that are chaviv to their owners, and he sameach, rejoices over the more he has. If you ever see a guy who has gold coins, so they count the gold coins religiously. Some people find silver coins or gold ignats or silver ignats, and they count them. They always hope, by counting them, they hope that it's going to get more and more. So when Klal Yisroel came out of Mitzrayim, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu counted them to show that they're not missing and that they're valuable to him. So many Svarim, they ask the obvious question. I have to count what I have, because I don't remember what I had from yesterday. And if I do from yesterday, but a month later I don't remember anymore, I'm not sure if it's still there or not still there. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's there. So what is the purpose of the counting? But the purpose is of the counting that Hashem does, since we're the subjects being counted, and we are told, we are human beings, and we are told that Hashem is counting us, so the message and the lesson is for us who's being counted. Each one of us has to know that he is a davar shebeminyan. In halacha, you have a concept of bittul. If you have things mixed together, so they become bottle. But if the items that are mixed together are a davar shebeminyan, that means they're not things that you relate to in bulk, but you relate to independently each one, and they're numbered, so then a davar shebeminyan is not bottle, even in a mixture of 1,000. That's the chashivas. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts us in order to let us know that each one of us has every single yid has a specific chashivus and a maila by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why the Chumash Bamidbar is called Chumash HaPikudim, the Chumash of numbers, even though only twice in the whole Chumash Bamidbar is there mentioned the subject of counting of Bnei Yisroel, because there is a tremendous inyan. Hashem has a tremendous value to every yid, and that a minyan serves as a reminder of us. Now the question is, what is that minyan tell me? The Shlo and the Ramami Panoi, they say that in the Torah we have 600,000 oisiyos, and each ois corresponds to the 600,000 neshamas of Klal Yisroel. The word Yisroel itself stands for Yesh, Shishim, Ribui, Oisiyos, L'Torah. That's what Yisroel stands for. And they correspond, Klal Yisroel corresponds, each ois in the Torah is individualized, and each ois in Klal Yisrael, each person represents an individual ois, because each person is separate. Now the halacha is that one of the dinim, when you write a Sefer Torah, there's a din of mukif givil. What does that mean, mukif givil? That means every letter has to be surrounded by empty space on all sides. You can't have two letters attached to each other. If they're attached, it's not mukif givil. You have to know, what does mukif givil do? It puts each letter in its own picture frame. Each one is framed by the cloth, by the parchment, independent of the other one. Similarly, every yid is sent to this world, and each one of us has a shlichus. And I'm the only one that could be mimali my tafkid, and you're the only one that could be mali your tafkid. Now, this information, this knowledge, is supposed to give a person the impetus and motivate himself to do and strengthen himself in avodas Hashem. He has to understand that there's no such a thing as there is another yid in the world, because he has to know just the opposite. There is no other yid in the world. He's never batal beroif, and therefore he must, under all circumstances, fulfill his obligation and his shlichus. Now, this is a tremendous lesson that each one of us has to constantly remind himself, because when a person runs a business, any type of avodah, he either takes inventory of his work, or the boss takes inventory of your work, and you have to figure out where you stand. What are you producing? Anytime I ask people who are working, I say, what kind of job are you doing for the company? If they shake their heads, you know they're not doing a good job. If they say, well, I'm doing this, can you define what you're doing for this company? It's funny, because not long ago I was talking to somebody, and I said to him, can you define for me your job that you do? He couldn't. I was shocked. He said, you're not the first one that pointed that out for me. I said, you work in a company, you can't describe for me. He said, a little of this, a little of that, a little of the other. I said, you're a professional. What do you mean you don't know what you do? Well, it's hard to explain. I said, that's terrible. It means you have no defined life. Can you imagine you meet a guy and you say to the guy, meet a kid and you're in yeshiva? No, what do you do? He said, well, I do whatever comes to hand, a little of this, a little of that. That's what's called, I am acting as if I am a nobody. I have no goals, no direction, no purpose. Now, a person has to know, there are two ways for a person to determine what his purpose is in this world. Everybody has certain deficiencies. There's nobody that I know that doesn't have a deficiency. Everybody's got some deficiencies. And everybody has some people would say, oh, I have so many deficiencies, I can't even know where to begin to start. That's true. But if you're in touch with yourself, you will notice, you will become aware that you have certain deficiency that is a root deficiency of which most of your other deficiencies come from. It may be a lack of emunah. It may be a lack of bitachon. It may be gaiva, arrogance. It may be you have an extreme dose of laziness. Now, a lot of people have laziness. Laziness is a common factor. Mr. Sherm says, goes across the board. But is that your factor? Is that the undermining of all of your actions? That's what a person has to determine. A real utzel, yes, it covers all his actions. And there are people that are bali taiva. That means taiva, everybody's got taiva. If you're a human being and you're alive, you've got taiva. So the question is, but to what degree does the taiva drive you, and what area of a taiva? Is it taivas noshim? Is it taivas mammon? What type of taiva drives you? Taivas achila v'shtia. And a person could figure out what is his deficiency in this world. It's amazing that there are people in this world, for example, whose one of their if they would put under a microscope their conversations per day. Everybody has his work that he does, and the people have their things that they do for enjoyment that grease their wheels, that keep them wanting to continue living. For some people, it's food. I knew a fellow who told me that with my father, he said, my whole entire being and existence was food. I said, what does that mean? He said, every day we discussed what I was going to eat what we were going to have for supper. When I was in college, I would call him almost every day and I would ask him, Dad, what are you having for supper tonight? He would ask me, what are you having? This is the conversation. He said, on the breaks, we would fly and plan trips for food. He said the most extensive one, we used to go fly to New York a lot of times. We flew to Chicago for supper, and we threw a breakfast in there also. We planned it, how we do it. We went to Paris once to have a meal in a special restaurant. I said to him, you realize, you push it, not a foodie, because you're pushing it, that's called a person who lives but I had a Choshuv guy, was a very, very fancy, schmancy guy in a very high job. He told me, I have 2 kids, and the conversation that we have every day is to my wife, to my kids, where are we going for dinner? And we argue and discuss, and a hen and a hare. That was the discussion. What are we having for dinner? And today was English, today was Italian, today was Latin, today was Thailand, Japanese, Chinese, okay. It's amazing. It's a sugi for some people. And then there are people that are driven by taivas noshim. And then there are people that are driven by taivas mam. That's their main focus in their life. And they're not even aware of it. They don't even think about it. They don't chap it. They don't chap what their focus is. This is what people have to realize is what you have to know what your tafkid is. Your avodah in this world is to be misakein this act. There are some people who are pashut in any job they'll do, in any undertaking, they never dream of becoming masters. They want to have the money, but they don't want to master anything. That's not what they do. They don't master things. A person has to understand you have to master something. And a person has to try to do the best job at what he does. And everybody in his life, he has to understand, in his relation, people who have these shortness of challenges, and some people that their challenge is dishonesty. They're just dishonest with themselves and with others. They can't say a true word. Everything that comes out of their mouth is capital B. There are some people who their underlying drive of everything they do in this world, whatever they do, they're always there's an underlining motivation. There's something that makes me unhappy about this. There are some good people, very good people, but when they'll handle with a mensch, they don't realize, but everything they're judging is by what about this person don't I like makes me unhappy. I'm going to a place where I like to be. What don't I like about this place? They're focused on what about this place don't I like. You chose to come here, but know what I don't like? It's too hot. It's too cold. The beds aren't good. Whatever you are, people don't behave nicely. You'll always find something that will undermine you. There's some, and it defeats, because life is made of challenges. There's nobody in this world doesn't have challenges. So certain people, if you're lazy, challenges are going to kill you, because not another one, not another one. Let's say a person's dishonest, so it's very hard to deal with challenges. A person that's by underlying unhappiness is nargonus. He has the complaint attitude. Every challenge is going to bring out a complaint. Every day he's going to live his life in darkness. So once in a while he'll get a little blitz, and he's not complaining. He says, "Well, I'm not a complainer. I'm not." You don't realize what you are. And you want to be a happy person. It's not that no one wants to be a Baal Taiva. No one wants to be a whatever the Taiva is. No one wants to be lazy. No one wants to be this, but they don't have. This is your tafkid for which you came to this world for. Then there is nobody in the world that doesn't have positive kaiches. Everybody has positive kaiches. There's no such thing. Everybody. I don't care what kind of shlepa you think you are, but I'm telling you, you have some kaiches. Just read a letter recently where parents wrote a letter to a Rav who was I consider him a pretty bright fellow, and they wrote a letter like this. We have a daughter, and she's in the mid-20s, and we can't imagine why anybody in the world would ever marry her. And we have no idea how she's going to get married, who's going to marry her. We can't imagine her making somebody else's life miserable, because she does a wonderful job making everybody around her miserable. She's going to make her children miserable, her husband miserable. And they push it, a petrified when a shidduch comes to her. She doesn't get someone shidduchim, but whenever she gets one, they peel petrified. So they asked the Rav, what should they do? How should they approach this? So the Rav said the first thing you do is stop renting her any shidduchim. Second, have her move out of your house. Because if you can't find something positive in your daughter, there's a problem with you. That's what the problem is. Everybody got some kaiches, some positive kaiches. I'm not saying your daughter's perfect, but maybe if your daughter was living with people who would focus on her kaiches, if she'll go to somebody else's house and they won't look at her negatively. And he was medayik in the whole letter, very strong diyukim, to bring out of how the parents looked negatively at this child doesn't stand a chance. So a person has to understand that everybody has, and no one can fix up what I have to fix up. Now what I have to fix up is not only for myself, I have to fix up for the world. Everybody's got a piece of real estate in this world. And my piece of real estate, I've got to develop. I develop it by, number one, taking away and dealing with the weaknesses that I have that impede me from developing that piece of land, my stakeout that Hashem gave me. I also do by using my kaiches that I have to build what I can build. Here's a person that, for example, has a midah, he likes to do chesed. A lot of people have that. But you know what? They never nurtured it. They never developed it. Why not? If you have, Hashem's going to say to you, you had a midah, because you know why? Because you saw somebody else who didn't have that midah of chesed, then you're going to think is, I don't want anybody taking advantage of me. Or that same person who likes to does chesed, and he thinks it's not going to be a challenge. There's going to be a challenge. And then he says, I should have never got involved in this. I hate doing chesed with this person. Or I hate doing this kind of chesed. And you get all kind of bent out of shape. So a person has to understand what he's built up, what he's made for. Here's a person that's not a lazy person generally. He has the ability to do something. If he understands it, he has to do it. He does it. Some people demonstrate without a lazy bone in their body. So he's a person that if you just get it, program his mind that he has to do this. This is something, and he clarifies. He's mivarer. He clarifies for himself, and he's ma'ames to himself that this is my tafkid. He's going to do that tafkid 100%. You can have a person that's not lazy and very motivated, but when it comes to learning, he doesn't chap klor that learning Torah is something you're chayiv to do. And it comes a little hard for you, so I'll do other things that come easier to me. Misses the boat. Person has to know this is the tafkid, the tachlis that we came to this world for. There are many people that are very unhappy with their lives. They don't like where they live, they don't live where they are, they think if they go someplace that's going to be better, they can run away. There's no such thing. You can't run away from yourself and run away from your tafkid and run away from your challenges that you came to this world for. And you have to grow from them. Challenges are made to grow from. You don't like them because you failed so many times. I understand that. That's very normal. People are disappointed in themselves if they don't get their act together. But the only one to blame for failure is yourself. And if you perpetuate it, it's going to get worse. It's never going to get better. Just because it becomes habitual and you do it over and over and over, that won't make you a better, happier person. It's going to make you a miserable, depressed soul. Look around at miserable, depressed souls, and you're looking at people who have failed over and over and over and over and over and never stopped to grab themselves and to up their lives. That's what you're looking at. In the Pasuk it says, Moine mispar lakechavim l'chulam shemois yikra. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says every morning in Hallelujah, Hashem counts each keichav, each star, he gives a number. And the number, each one has a name. There's no two stars in this in that have the same name. It's amazing. There's so many stars, we have no imagination how many millions of stars there are in the sky, and each one is humongous and huge. For us it looks small, but they all have a name, and everybody has a specific, one that has a specific avodah. That's why Hashem calls them each one by a different name. Just because I can't figure out what does that star do, what does that star do, what does that star do, I can't figure out. There are definitely certain stars that are known in the world to guide people and do other things, but every one has his own. Klal Yisroel is compared to stars. Every one is compared to stars. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Chazal say, B'nai Yisroel are nimshalu lekechavim. What's the idea that compared to stars? That's the lesson. What's the shaykhs? And what we are stars. We're not in the sky. We don't shine. The answer is you're stars, because just like when you look at them from the distance, you just see a whole cluster of stars. You see unlimited, untold. You look at masses of people. You don't chap that each one is his own world. You don't even view yourself as your own world. Still in all, if you get close, you see each star is a whole different world. It's an existent entity in its own. So too, every person is entity in its own. So even though he's part of, there's other stars besides himself, but his star has his own name and his own definition. In the Kleyokar, in this Parsha, it says, on the Pasuk of Se'ues Ra'osh B'nai Yisrael, he says, even though Rashi explains what is Se'ues Ra'osh means, it's a lashon of taking a cheshbon, taking an accounting and getting the numbers straight. But you have to take note, he says, that the way the Torah writes it is su'u, lift up, elevate. Because Hashem wanted Klal Yisroel to know that I am interested in counting you, but the purpose of this counting is that you should be elevated. You should be numbered. When you see somebody not doing his job and not living for his purpose and getting bogged down in his life, what you're watching is somebody who could be an elevated individual, a special individual. You see the person getting bogged down, and this mile is only Adas B'nai Yisrael. When it comes to the Amim, they don't have a separate number. The numbers a goy in the Ummah Yisraelim, they're not separate numbers, they're clusters. There's this Ummah, there's that Ummah, there are 70 Ummahs. And each person is not human being. They're humans, but they don't have necessarily a specific tafkid. It could be this group of people, Hashem wants, these Chinese people, they're going to make Chinese food. Hashem has a bunch of other people, they're going to make fake watches. That's their job, that's their tafkid in this world, produce cheap watches. Or this cluster of 1 million Chinamen, they're going to do X, create widgets and little things. That's what they do. They stay all day at work and they just grind out the old same tedious. I was reading how these factories work. You like a number in the factory. You like nothing. You like almost like a robot. They're looking for human robots, and that's what you are. Because just like cash, just like straw, the Ummah never compared to straw. No one ever counts each piece of straw. Straw you count in bales. You count a bale of straw, a load of straw. So therefore, each yid is considered like an entire nation. So that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them numbers, he says. Now, Reb Moshe Feinstein says, with this, we can understand of why the Chazal, they were misaking that you should read Parshas Bamidbar before Chag HaShavuos. Like as Mavur in the Gemara Megillah, at the end of the Megillah, and the Tiferes over there. And he says the pshat is, the shaykhis, is because there are many people who feel that they're misrashel, they're lackadaisical in their approach to Limud HaTorah. Asked a group of people what happened on Shavuos. Most people don't realize what happened on Shavuos. What do most people answer? What happened on Shavuos? Al-Khanan? We got the Torah. Does everybody agree to that? We got the Torah. Moshe, agree to that? But that's not what happened on Shavuos. Because we didn't get anything. What did you get? Did we get a Sefer Torah? Did we get Luchos? Did we get, what do we get? You know what we got? We got a class. We had a study group. Hashem was melamed Torah la'amo Yisroel. That's what happened. Some of the Torah Hashem was melamed of 2 main dibros. We didn't get the 10 dibros. Hashem taught us. It was an act of limud haTorah. Every single Jewish soul learned Torah. In case anyone thought he wasn't capable, he learned Torah. Then for the rest, besides for the first 2 dibros, Hashem taught it to Moshe. We were students in that classroom, listening as Moshe was being taught the whole Torah, being programmed in his genes and dynamics. The first thing we got was supposed to be on the 17th of Tammuz, and we didn't end up getting it because it never arrived through the service that was delivering it. The first thing we got physically was Yom Kippur. We got the second Luchos, but then slowly we got the Sefer Torah was committed to writing and written down, and then we had something tangible. which we were retaught by Moshe. So the whole Shavuos is the lesson of Talmud Torah. That's what it's all about. That's my Bible. And a person has to know that when he comes to Shavuos, most people think, well, I'm not from the Torah group. I don't belong there. I'm not part of this. This is not my cup of tea. It's not my strength. I'm not drawn to that. I like mowing lawns. I like building buildings. Everybody has got an ois in the Torah. If you got a Jewish soul in you, you have an ois in the Torah, and you're shaykh with her. I didn't say you're going to be Moshe Rabbeinu. I didn't say you have a very big ois. Maybe you have a little yud. But maybe it's a little fisel from a hay. But you got to let her in the Torah. You're there. That means you're shaykh to limud HaTorah. And Moshe says that people think that the Baal are not going to get to any real madrega in Torah. So what they do is Shavuos becomes for them cheesecake yontif. And they go, instead of sukkah hopping, they go cheesecake hopping. And half the night they're discussing, either before by shul, when they come to shul, no, what kind of cheesecake did you get? Did you get the lilac cheesecake? Did you get yellow cheesecake? Did you hear about the new kind of company? It was a new you saw those ads, mamish, those ads, amazing cheesecakes. I mean, mamish, they look like, I wonder if they taste good, and did you hear about that kind of cheesecake? And that becomes the divrei Torah for the yontif that all these people feel a kesher to. And, the ikar, people, there were people that stay up all night just for one thing, to have that morning, Shavuos morning kiddush. I remember as a child, that was the kiddush of my year. Came home, it was the first time my mother actually, I never saw such a thing as a kiddush in my house. We made regular kid part of the meal, but this was a kiddush, and that cheesecake, mother used to make the special cheesecake, it was mamish. That became my ahava for the yontif. And I always wondered, why can't we have the cheesecake at the beginning of the night? But then we weren't necessarily milchiks. But this is what a person never, because he doesn't see himself as having any shaykhs to the Torah. But when a person sees his maila, and he understands that he's counted, he's a number, he has his own number, individualized number. He's not part of a cluster. He's not a group. And he could also have shaykhs to a madrega. So therefore, before Shavuos, a person reads this Parshas Bamidbar, and it's supposed to reset his clock. It's supposed to think of how I am a player, and I have to develop myself, and I have to fulfill that role that I was created for.